Angie, can you hear us? We just want to check the sound.
I can hear you fine.
Thank you.
Okay.
With the iPad, there's no actual mute.
Oh yeah, you can't do it on the iPad.
Oh, as you can, or no, I got something for you.
It's a hammer. He just doesn't want to tighten it.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect.
Donna, we can check yours too if you like.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay.
Gary, can we check your sound?
1, 2, 3. How's that?
4, 5, 6. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll call the Committee of Adjustment hearing to order. Just before we get started this evening, since this is a virtual meeting, I'm just going to go through a little bit of the difference between normal meetings and this one. We're going to go through a roll call to start things off, just to make sure everyone can hear us. I know we did it kind of pre-meeting, but just so everyone knows. We have all committee members here this evening, so we'll just go through the list. Angie, you can hear us all right?
I can.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Eric?
Here.
Thank you. And Donna?
Here?
Thank you. Also, we'll have applicants, and we also have some delegations that will be zooming in at the time. We'll let them into the meeting at that time. Did we need to go through them to start things off, just to make sure we okay when we get to that point? Okay. So what we'll do is, once we get to a particular application, we'll read through the secretary will read through the application. We'll bring in the applicant at that time into the meeting. They can add any additional comments that they like at that time. Committee members will then have the opportunity to ask any questions of the applicants in that period. Then we'll go to delegations that are in the room, and we will bring them in one at a time. Prior to starting, I will set the names. I have the names already, but we'll just confirm going through the names. Currently, I believe we have 3 potential for 2 of the applications, so when we get there, I'll identify those people. If there's anyone else that logs in They had to pre-arrange through staff to get in there, so those are the only ones that I'm aware of. Currently, there's no one here in the council chambers other than the support staff to make the meeting happen. So with that, now that we've checked with the committee members and they can all hear and see and we can see them, the actual meeting itself we'll go through, and I'll ask if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the applications this evening with any of the members. A request will be made for any deferrals or withdrawals of applications that are on the agenda. Following that, the Secretary Treasurer will read out each application on the agenda with a brief description, staff recommendation, and includes any additional correspondence that's been received since the time of the writing of the staff report. Following that, the applicant or the agent for the applicant will introduce themselves. We'll bring them into the meeting. They can add any additional comments that they wish to at that time. Followed by members of the committee will then have the opportunity to ask the applicant any questions that they might have. Once that is concluded, members of the public that have prearranged to speak to an application will then be brought in one at a time. We do have a 10-minute time limit on people making a presentation, so please ask any questions and complete questions or comments or concerns that you have in that time frame, and we'll try to address them as best we can. Following that, the applicant will be afforded some closing comments, and then we'll look for a motion from one of the committee members for a decision. The decision will be moved and seconded. We'll discuss it if need be, and we'll vote on a decision. The committee members will vote until we actually have a decision. If a motion is defeated, we'll continue to have motions until we reach a conclusion. Sorry, I just got to scroll through my notes here. Let me see if I missed anything else. So with that being said, I'm just going to flip to my other screen here. Just bear with me. I just also want to make mention that notices of decision will only be provided to those persons that leave their name and address in writing with the Secretary Treasurer. That can be done via email following the meeting. I believe we'll leave that open for 24 hours-ish after the meeting. So if anyone that's listening or watching at home, even though you didn't speak, you can email the Secretary Treasurer of the committee to get added to that list. It should also be noted that, sorry, I lost track. So we got the notice there. It should also be noticed that in order to be kept advised of any possible local planning appeal tribunal hearings, persons must request to be sent a copy of the committee's decision on an application. So it's important that if you have any concerns, you get on that list. So with that being said, I'll look to see if there's any conflicts of interest with any of the committee members. And I'm looking at the screen. If anyone has any conflicts, please raise your hand. Not seeing any. So with that being said, what we will do is maybe before, since we don't have all of the applicants here at the same time, maybe prior to starting each application, we'll ask to make sure if anyone has any conflicts or wants withdrawals of those applications, we can get those. But so anyone that's in the waiting room to come in on the applicant side, if you have any questions when you get to that stage, soon as the Secretary Treasurer reads the application, we'll quickly bring you in so you can hear that part, and if you want to withdraw, you can do that at that time. So with that being said, Mr. Secretary, the first application, please.
The first application on our agenda tonight is application B04-20-PC for the property known as 202 Main Street West. Bring in Mark Valencourt, please, the applicant. Okay, perfect. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter CP 13, Section 53.1, And in the matter of the property legally known as Lot 3 and part of Lot 4 in Block A and part of Lot 3 on the south side of Main Street West, Plan 762 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 202 Main Street West. And in the matter of an application by the owner, Mark Valencourt of Cram Holdings, Inc., for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 22.17 meters with a total lot area of 735 square meters on Neff Street for a future apartment building. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 46.65 meters on Main Street West with a total lot area of 1,909 square meters for a continued mixed-use building. So we have received correspondence from the Niagara region for the application. The Niagara Region Planning and Development Services regional staff acknowledged that the survey sketch circulated in support of the consent application has indicated a new driveway entrance proposed from Regional Road 3, which is Main Street West, to permit access to the retained lot shown as Part 2 on the sketch. Please be advised that due to the proximity of the proposed access to the intersection as well as the existing streetscaping that would need to be removed and relocated / reinstated as part of the entrance construction, the region would prefer the applicant explore easement options for allowing access through existing locations from Neff Street or King Street instead of proposing a new access from Regional Road 3. Based on the analysis and comments above, Regional Planning and Development Services offer no objection to the proposed consent application. Please send notice of the committee's decision with regard to this application. And we also have correspondence from the Planning Division. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments for the hearing. Notice was circulated on August 21st, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received from any members of the public. And the agency comments were the ones from the region as well, and those were circulated on the same day as the public comments. So the property is designated as downtown commercial. The downtown commercial designation does not provide any specific details relating to lot creation or consent applications. Intensification is encouraged in the urban area, therefore staff is confident that this application conforms to the policies of the official plan. Suggested conditions for the application have been listed at the end of this report. The property is also zoned downtown commercial. The downtown commercial zone permits a variety of commercial uses as well as apartment buildings and accessory dwelling units. The DC zone does not have any minimum lot size, and it only has a minimum lot frontage of 10 meters when the property is used for residential purposes. The proposed parcel to be severed will have a frontage of 22 meters, which exceeds the requirement in the bylaw. Residential uses are permitted in the downtown commercial zone, and the new lot will comply with all the requirements of the zoning bylaw. Staff is confident that this application meets the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. As mentioned above, staff does not have any concerns with relation to the consent application with regard to the official plan and zoning bylaw. Staff was of the opinion that the owner was in talks with the region and had the approval to create the driveway entrance from the remnant Part 2 off of Main Street West. Through the region's commenting process, they have kind of backtracked on that approval. So with that, staff is recommending that the owner either obtain approval from the region or obtains another option for an entrance to the remnant Part 2 parcel. Staff concludes that this consent application will allow for the future orderly development of the properties and is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. Planning staff recommends consent application B0420 PC be granted subject to the following conditions: that the owner applicant obtain approval from the Niagara region and the City of Port Colborne for a driveway entrance for Part 2 off of Main Street West, or an easement be applied for and granted by the Committee of Adjustment to create a shared driveway entrance off of Neff Street to service both Part 1 and Part 2. 2, that the dwelling on Part 1 be demolished. 3, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748-130-05, which requires the collection of parkland dedication at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property the day before the issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. 4, that the applicant provides the secretary treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan in both paper and electronic format, if applicable, for use in the issuance of certificate of consent. 5, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the secretary treasurer for the following reasons. The application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended. 2, this decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13. Signed, David Schultz, planner, and reviewed by Dan Aquilina, Director of Planning and Development. That concludes the correspondence for this application, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. The applicant I see is in the room. If you can just unmute your mic, and if there's anything further you'd like to add.
Hello?
Hello?
Are you guys able to hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Perfect. No, it looks like David covered everything pretty well there. I have been in talks with the region about the driveway on Main Street West there. I was also under the opinion that they didn't have anything against the entrance going in there, that my biggest challenge was going to be the relocation of the planter. And that kind of has been figured out now with you guys at the city. And today I've spoken to a few people at the region. It sounds like they're just they're kind of saying that it would be easier to do it another way, but that they won't have any big opposition to putting the entrance in there after all.
All right, thank you. So hearing that, is any committee members have any question for the applicant? Gary?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at one of the provisions where it speaks to, like at this stage, we don't know whether Main Street entrance is for real or you have to go on Neff Street. But when I look at the a copy of a resolution, and I'm just going to paraphrase this, Mr. Chair, or actually I'll read the whole thing. It's that owner applicant obtain approval from the Niagara Region and City of Port Colborne for a driveway entrance for Part 2 off of Main Street West, or an easement be applied for and granted by the Committee of Adjustment to create a shared driveway entrance off of Neff Street. So my question probably is more through you to our planner, David. I'm just, in the drawing, it shows that the small garage upper house on Neff Street in the sketch be removed. So my question is that if the apartment goes through with the entrance on Main, is that negating the house on Neff Street from having to be removed? Because otherwise I think you'd want to sever it down the middle because you'd have a house on Neff, which is, well, sorry, I guess you wouldn't have to, because it's part, I don't have my drawing up and the resolution at the same time. Sorry, David. But I guess if I just ask the initial question, will the house on Neff Street be coming down either way? If the entrance is on Main or if it's on Neff?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to member Bruno. So the applicant is proposing to put the apartment building on Part 1 of the drawing, where the house,
right,
where the house is currently situated. So with that, the house will have to be demolished in order to make space for the future apartment building. The main entrance issue, I guess, was that the applicant would like to keep the restaurant operating, at least to start.
Right.
And with that, he would like to have parking available for his patrons. Now, parking isn't a requirement in the downtown commercial zone for commercial uses. However, there are apartments above the mixed-use city tavern, which do require a parking space per unit. So it's more of a preference that the applicant would like a new entrance, and an entrance to stay with the mixed-use building.
So that being said, the resolution, one, talks about or an easement be applied for and granted by the Committee of Adjustment to create a shared driveway entrance off of Neff Street. Well, if the house is coming down either way, will it not never be a shared driveway? Hence, why have that easement? If the house is coming down, whether there's an entrance on Main or not, you've said there isn't going to be a house. To me, you wouldn't need a shared driveway if there's nothing to share it with, i.e. the house coming down.
Gary, if I might step in, I think you're stuck in looking at what current reality is as far as accessing. If you severed part one and envision a fence along that back property line, you wouldn't be able to get to the parking lot of part two that's remnant for the business. There's no way to access it because it'd be cut off. So you need an access either off of Main, or you'd have to have an easement or right of way to come across part one if it was severed to access that back parking lot. And I think that's the recommendation of this resolution, is that either you gain access off of Main Street to access the parking lot at the rear of the commercial establishment now, or you have to gain a right of way through that severed part one, so that way you have access to the parking lot at the back of part two. Does that make better sense?
It does make sense, but that's why I led with the question, is the house coming down either way?
Whether it comes down or not, I don't think it really matters. If once you sever the lot, you cannot drive across part one to access part two, you're trespassing.
Right, so doesn't there have to be a severance between one and two?
That's what we're here tonight to discuss.
Well, I guess I was thinking that, and perhaps you're right, but I guess I was thinking that at the end of the day, this was going to be all one property. And so I think that's where my confusion is. So at the end of the day, ultimately it will be one property?
No, the application is to sever part one from part two, so there'll be two properties.
Right, so the division will be right at the part one and part two property line?
I believe so, yes.
Is that right, David?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, great. Then I'm fine. Thank you.
Does any other members have any questions of the applicant? Not seeing any hands. I don't think there's been any new requests to appear or talk from the public.
I haven't received any members of the public for this one. No.
All right. Does the applicant have any final comments before we make a resolution or recommendation?
Yeah, a couple things. I'm wondering if we would be able to sever the property off into part one and part two without necessitating that I tear down the small residence on the back of part one beforehand. Because there is a tenant in there now, and it is in the works for him to be leaving, but there is no set date for that yet. He's he requires some assistance, and I don't want to give him a hard deadline to be out of the property. So I don't want that to hold up the severance, if that would be possible.
Generally, I'll ask the planner for comments here, but the condition for the severance to go through, you have 1 year to comply with the condition.
Okay.
So you have 1 year to, I guess, vacate that building and at least apply for the demolition. Whether that dwelling is demolished in that, I would say as long as the application has been requested to demolish the building, I think would suffice to meet that that requirement. And then we can go from there. Being that it is conditional, If we got down to the nitty gritty, you could technically come back to the committee and ask that that condition be waived at that time, and I guess present your case for whatever reason. And the committee, I won't say that it'd be granted or not of waiving it if the condition did stay, but there is that remedy as well. So I don't know, as far as, I'll defer to the planner, whether it's an absolute necessity as a condition of the severance to have that dwelling demolished or not, or whether it was just because that was what was applied for at the time and you'd state that you'd demolish it. So I'll leave that to David to comment further.
It's essentially up to the committee to decide if they want that condition in there or not. I would say historically, when a building does not comply with the zoning provisions of the zone it's in and potentially is encroaching on the city's road allowance, we would like to see it demolished prior to the consent happening, or a successful minor variance application along with it when that does happen. But it is essentially up to the committee if they want that condition in there. But I would reiterate that he does have a year to comply with those conditions, to clear those conditions, and the consent will not technically happen until that year or the conditions have been cleared.
Thank you. Does that help you out a little bit there, Matt?
Yes, it does.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I guess as well as if, like I say, if the condition stays and you get close to that time frame, theoretically, I guess you could come back and then ask for the variance, because that looks like that dwelling is encroaching on the road allowance, or as a bare minimum probably exceeds the setback requirements. That could be part of the ask at the same time. Gary, I see your hand up. Do you want to ask another question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if you could recant when you say the variance. Then I guess my main concern is not to hinder the applicant with the tenant now, but that without this condition, could the applicant come back and then ask for a severance for that very small house? So in other words, he gets this one before he builds, he then severs the house.
The application is for the severance today, though. We can't switch it to
Right,
the
no,
variance.
I understand that.
That's all we're dealing with.
Then I'm concerned that, I'm just concerned that the house comes down before, I don't know if it can, I guess it can't really be a condition. Well, it would be effectively, David, would this be happening at what you're saying is it's really not until the registration point that small house could stay there, but then it would have to be down if the recommendation was intact as it reads now.
That's correct. They would have to clear the conditions before the property would technically be severed.
Thank you, David. So through you to the applicant, is that a problem with the tenant given a full year that he would vacate for the tear down?
That should not be a problem, no. 1 year should be lots of time. Hopefully it will be quicker than that, but that should not be a problem.
Then I'm fine with that. I think we should leave the current condition if registration gives them a year. I think that would please everybody, including some neighbors in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Not seeing
Nothing
any?
at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Does someone have a recommendation? Angie?
Yes, I would like to move it. Can you hear me?
I can. I was waiting for you to read it.
Okay, good. Okay, so application B0420 PC in the matter of Planning Act RSO 1990, Chapter 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the property legally known as Lot 3 and part of Lot 4 in Block A and part of Lot 3 on the south side of Main Street West, Plan 762 in the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 202 Main Street West. And in the matter of an application by owner Mark Valancourt of Cram Holdings, Inc., for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 22.17 meters, 72 feet, with a total area of 735 square meters, 7,911 square feet on Neff Street for a future apartment building. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 46.65 meters, that's 150 feet, on Main Street West, with a total area of 1,909 square meters, or 20,548 square feet, for a continued mixed-use building. That the consent application B0420 PC be granted, subject to the following conditions. 1, that the owner applicant obtain approval from the Niagara Region and City of Port Colborne for a driveway entrance for Part 2 off Main Street West, or an easement to be applied for and granted by the Committee of Adjustment to create a shared driveway entrance off Neff Street to service both Part 1 and Part 2. 2, that the dwelling on Part 1 be demolished. 3, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748/130/05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication at the time of the building permit application, based on the value of the property the day before the issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any further purchasers of this requirement. Number 4, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a copy of the deposited reference plan in both paper and electronic format, and if applicable, for electronic format, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 5, that the final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer for the following reasons. 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-30-18 as amended. 2, the decision is rendered having regard to the provisions of subsection 5124 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13. No public comments were received.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Gary? Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. All in favor? You can raise your hands. That's would be carried unanimously. Thank you. All right, the next application, Mr. Secretary, when you're ready.
Application B05-20-PC for the property known as 607 Barrack Road.
Is the applicant there?
So we could read it and then bring them in, doesn't really matter.
All right.
In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the property legally known as part of Lot 31, Concession 3, in the former township of Humberstone, now in the City of Port Colborne, Region of Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 607 Barrack Road. And in the matter of an application by the agent Matt Kernahan of Upper Canada Consultants for the owner Coolwant Sodi for a severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 25.47 meters with the total lot area of 1,178 square meters for a continued residential use. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 20.12 meters on Barrack Road with a total lot area of 3.23 hectares for a future residential development. The following correspondence has been received from the Planning Division. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offered the following comments. Notice was circulated on August 21st, 2020, and no written correspondence has been received as of the date of this comment being prepared. Notice was also circulated on August 21st to the agencies, and no written correspondence has been received. The City of Port Colborne official plan outlines the requirements for severance. Policy 3.2.4, consents to sever, allows the severance of lands designated urban residential subject to the following policies. A survey sketch prepared by a registered Ontario land surveyor is required, which the applicant has submitted. Lots created through land severance shall have frontage on a public road. The proposed lot will have a frontage along Barrack Road. Land severances on private roads are discouraged except as provided for in the zoning bylaw or except on private roads in a registered plan of subdivision. The proposed lot is not on a private road. Land severances for technical reasons will be permitted as a boundary adjustment where part of a property is being deeded to an adjacent landowner, for easements, for rights of way, or for any other purpose that does not create a separate lot. This application is not for one of these technical reasons. Development of more than 3 lots will require a plan of subdivision. The application will only create 1 new lot. Conditions may be opposed on the approval of the land severances, including but not limited to execution of a development agreement, payment of development charges, parkland dedication, road widening, provision of water/wastewater servicing, minimum distance separation, and or requirements of a commenting agency addressing the legitimate concern. Suggested conditions are included as part of the end of the report. It is the opinion of the Planning Division that the application for consent is consistent with the official plan because residential uses are supported in the urban residential designation and the requirements of policy 3.2.4 have been satisfied, subject to meeting requested conditions. There is some history on this property. I will allow the applicant to go through that history for the committee. I'll just finish up with my recommendation and then we will allow the applicant to speak. So staff, given the information above and the information provided by the applicant, planning staff recommend that this application be approved subject to the following conditions. 1, the approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to address lot requirement deficiencies on parcel 2 and to implement a holding provision prohibiting development on the property until a secondary plan has been adopted by City Council. 2, that any existing structures on Part 2 be demolished. 3, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicated that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748-130-05, which requires the collection of parkland dedication fee at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property of the day before issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. 4, that the applicant provides a secretary treasurer with the deeds and triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registrable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper copy and digital copy of the deposit reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. 5, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the secretary treasurer. 6, that all conditions of consent be fulfilled by September 9th, 2021. For the following reasons: 1, that the application conforms to the policies of the official plan, City of Port Colborne official plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575-3018 as amended. Signed, David Schultz, planner, reviewed by Dan Aquilina, Director of Planning and Development. At this time, I would let the applicant speak.
Very well. Is the applicant there this evening? Oh, we even got video. Excellent. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Good evening, Chair. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you. Please proceed with any further questions or comments that you have.
Great. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to speak on this application this evening. My name is Matt Kernahan. I'm a senior planner with Upper Canada Consultants, and I represent the property owner of 607 Barrack Road. Planning staff's done a really good job of summarizing the application, its history, and how it meets the applicable planning policies of the province, the region, and the city. And we've had the opportunity to review the report and recommendations to the committee. We agree with staff's position that the application should be approved. For this reason, and that this application's been in front of the committee in the past, I'm going to keep my presentation pretty brief this evening, but I'm happy to answer any questions the committee has afterwards if there's points of clarification that are required. When the committee last considered this application, planning staff recommended that it be deferred until the applicant had completed an appropriate planning process that demonstrated that the proposed severance would not interfere with the orderly development of the balance of the subject property or the surrounding properties. You may recall that the committee agreed with this recommendation and deferred the application on this basis. Ultimately, the application was adjudicated by the local planning appeals tribunal, and a settlement was reached between my client and the city. The intent of that settlement and the policies of the city's official plan are to ensure that the severance does not interfere with the orderly development of the large remnant parcel or the surrounding properties. Maintaining the developability of these larger parcels is in the interest of the city. My client is a landowner and represents good planning. So, as part of this severance application, my firm has prepared a preliminary neighborhood plan to demonstrate the planning staff how the remnant parcel and surrounding properties could possibly be developed in the future, and how that development will not interfere or be frustrated by this severance. This land use concept would be implemented in the future through a separate planning process called a secondary plan. Secondary planning process involves a detailed land use planning study and the formulation of a preferred land use plan. This process is far more detailed and involved than this severance, and it will be subject to future public consultation activities. In addition, the decision on the secondary plan for this parcel and the surrounding area will be made by council through the approval of amendments to the official plan and zoning bylaw. The matter before the committee this evening relates to the severance of a lot containing an existing single detached dwelling from a larger development parcel that will be developed through a separate council-approved process in the future. The important consideration for the committee is whether the proposed severance conforms to the applicable planning policies and makes good planning sense. In particular, that it will not interfere or frustrate the orderly development of surrounding properties. My submission to the committee this evening is that I concur with the position of planning staff as outlined in their report that the severance be approved this evening. We agree with the position of planning staff that there should be an orderly development process of the remnant parcel and surrounding properties, and we agree and accept the condition that requires a zoning bylaw amendment to place a holding provision on the remnant parcel. Our submission has demonstrated that this proposed severance constitutes an orderly development of land that will not interfere with the ability of the remnant parcel or adjacent parcels to develop through future and separate processes. The proposed severance is consistent with provincial policies and conforms to growth plan policies for orderly development in the urban area. The proposed severance conforms to the objectives and policies of the Region of Niagara official plan for directing growth to existing urban areas. Lastly, and most importantly in my view, the proposed severance conforms to the City of Port Colborne planning policies for severances and secondary plans. For these reasons, I respectfully submit to the committee that the severance proposed through this application represents good land use planning and should be approved in accordance with planning staff's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any members that wish to speak to it? Gary, you're quick to jump at it, so I got Gary, Donna, and then Eric. So Gary first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the agent. Thank you very much for outlining the concern that's been shared with all of us, and that is with respect to the secondary plan issues. You mentioned the fact that I believe it was that you had done a remnant drawing, notwithstanding that's not the final drawing or maybe entirely different when that. Is that something that could be shared?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the member, certainly it could. It was submitted to the city as part of our application. I'm not entirely sure if technically at this point in time through this venue I can share it, or if I have the permissions to do that. If those participants were, or if those permissions were available to me, I could certainly share it right now at this point, but I'm not sure how this meeting's been set up in terms of that.
Gary,
I guess I wasn't thinking about tonight, given the format that we're in, but sort of going forward or after this evening. Thank you.
Okay, I guess the only, for our particular case here, if it's relevant to your decision tonight, then we should see it tonight. If you feel that it's not relevant to that, then Gary, then I guess as your role as counselor, you can ask for it at some other time, but otherwise
Yes,
it's not
Mr.
really.
Chair, I wasn't thinking about tonight or being dependent upon me as a member's decision. No, not at all. That's fine.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I had Donna next.
I'm okay, Mr. Chair. I've had an answer.
Thank you. Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant's agent. My concern, I'm looking at remnant 2, so I'm looking at the sketch right now, and when I look at the remnant, when I look at parcel 2, I see there's a septic bed on it. Does parcel 1 have its own septic, or is it attached to that septic bed? Could you maybe elaborate on that?
Through you, Chair, I'm not aware of there being a septic bed that our client's dwelling is relying on the remnant parcel.
Okay, just to be clear, there's no municipal servicing on the remnant parcel, correct?
David?
Through you, Chair, there's no development on the remnant parcel that would require it. But my understanding is municipal services are available in this location.
Okay.
David, can you?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the applicant is correct. There are municipal services in this area. So I would imagine that septic bed is long overdue and not used anymore.
Okay. Anything else, Eric?
Yeah, so would that septic bed be part of the structures that should be demolished or removed? It's one of the conditions, I believe, is it not, in the recommendation?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. If the committee wishes to include that as one of the pieces to be removed, then that's up to that committee, and they can do that.
Would the applicant like to maybe elaborate on the potential removal of that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, our intent with this application is really to separate this dwelling from its ties to the future development of the remnant parcel. So my understanding from speaking with the applicant is that dwelling doesn't rely on that septic system. So bearing in mind that there's going to be a fulsome planning process that is going to be undertaken for that remnant parcel, and that's going to involve, amongst other things, a detailed subdivision and/or site plan approval processes. Following which there would be, subject to the approval of council of the secondary plan, a larger scale construction project. My preference would be to tie the removal of that septic system, which is not used, to the future development of that parcel.
Okay, thank you.
If I might, just to that point, so you said you agreed with the staff's recommendation, which included the demolition of, I believe there's like a garage dwelling that's there. So you're proposing that you wouldn't demolish that garage and that would happen afterwards?
No, Chair. We're in agreement with the removal of the accessory structures above the ground.
But you're not in agreement with looking for, even if the septic bed exists, just to make sure that it's totally decommissioned?
Our preference would be to leave that condition off, but if it's the will of the committee, we can deal with that.
I guess the reason I asked the question is when I visited the property there on the weekend, I noticed there's current construction on that existing building. It looks like they've added on an addition at the back. I see that there is a permit in the window. I didn't go up and look at the permit, but I could see it from the road that it was in the window, which is excellent. However, I also didn't see any excavation from the current dwelling to the road to suggest that that current building was attached to the existing system. I'll assume, based on living in the area for a while, and I'm sure some of the other members have lived here even longer than I have, that existing dwelling that's on part one that's currently being renovated, I believe is probably original to the property. And I suspect that back in the day when that building was occupied, that septic bed was the in use for that dwelling at that time. I know that the services along Berwick, on that part of Berwick, only extend so far down Berwick. I will assume that they extend far enough to capture this property. And I'll assume that part of that building permit process was to connect the sewage and water up to the municipal services, but I don't know that to be fact. But I guess the fact that you're a little hesitant to talk about the septic bed when asked lends me to believe that maybe it's still being used for now and the plan was to connect to the services at a later date, but I'm just speculating on that. I'm hoping that's not the case here.
So if I can just respond to that, my involvement in this process is limited to the Planning Act applications. I understand that there is a number of ongoing building permit applications on the property. To be 100% honest with you, I'm not familiar with the granular details of what is happening with those. I can respond generally to some of the things which are being done, but as part of our development, preliminary development plan development, we did a sort of a tertiary municipal servicing review, and I can confirm that municipal services are available at this location. Whether or not the existing dwelling is connected to them, I couldn't be certain.
Okay. Gary, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Member Beauregard and yourself, Mr. Chair, have brought up some salient points that I don't think we would want to just make some assumptions and end up with a consent to sever with an active septic system on what might be a road allowance someday or part of a secondary plan. And you're right that services do go down there, water farther than wastewater. And so I don't know myself, as well as you well stated, Mr. Chair, whether that property is on municipal wastewater or not. But I don't think we would want to sever with the septic bed on one lot and the active property on another. So I don't know, David, if there's any planning words that we've used in similar situations, but I'm okay with not removing it. I'm not okay with just leaving it assumed that it's not active and feeds the house. So that would give some comfort, I think, to the developer of not needing to remove, but at the same token, I don't want to leave it to chance that that we have an active septic bed feeding a house on a different lot after the severance is complete if we approve it. So I'm wondering, I would like to put some wording in there that assures that the condition is that the current house under construction, I guess that would be parcel 1, would it be? Through you to the applicant or to David?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the existing house is on parcel 1, that's correct.
That the condition be that verification of parcel 1 is on full municipal services. Would that capture wastewater, Mr. Secretary?
Yeah, we can either do it that way, or I'm thinking that when the time comes, whoever makes the motion, we can amend to a little bit to state that the demolition of the existing dwelling on part 2, including the removal of the septic bed, or a certificate certifying that that's acceptable to the city, that the septic bed is totally decommissioned and it's just a vacant septic bed. If that would suffice, at least some wording to that effect, to saying that it's been decommissioned and it's not active. All right, so with that, I know there was some public members that wish to speak to this application, so I will turn to whichever applicant you want to pull first. When the applicant comes in, please state your name and address for the record, and then you can ask whatever you like at that time. So the first speaker to this is Christine, and I don't see your full name on the screen, but maybe you can introduce yourself, Christine.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Can you hear me?
We can, yes?
Okay, I live at 597 and my name is Christine Burgraff, and I am right next door to 607 Barrack Road. And there's been an awful lot of work going on, and there's been a lot of dirt applied to that yard. Drainage ditch was removed, and now I have a lot of flooding going on. I was always under the understanding that 607 was to be demolished at some point and a roadway was to be put in. I also have a map here from the Conservation Authority, and they have another property that was severed from beside 607 and between 607 and 643. If that is the case, where is there going to be a road to the back if there's going to be any future development behind me? Hello?
Yeah, is that all of your comments at this time? I just that you're limited in your time, and if I turn to the applicant for comment, I just want to use up your time.
Well, currently I have an issue with a swamp behind my home, and the next door neighbor, they had a drainage ditch. They put a weeping tile in, which was a 4-inch weeping tile, which is not enough to drain the property behind me, which belongs currently still to 607 Barrack Road. And actually, that's basically my questions.
Okay, thank you. So to the applicant, maybe the first point, if you can address, I know Gary had asked for a mapping or a drawing of this secondary plan of how you'd access the property at the rear. Maybe at this time you can elaborate, at least verbally, where that access point would be. To the applicant?
Certainly, immediately, if you look at the severance sketch itself, you'll see that there is an area approximately 20 meters in width immediately to the west of part 1 that connects the remnant parcel to Barrack Road. So preliminarily, the reason why we chose the width of the severance at 25 meters was to leave behind sufficient frontage for a municipal road allowance to connect the lands to the north to Barrack Road. So that would be the location immediately to the west of the proposed lot.
Now, just to the Christine's comments there with regards to, I know it's not shown on your application sketch, but in the staff report, there's a highlighted map there. There's a parcel that's further to the left, or sorry, further to the west of the remnant piece there of part 2. Is that owned by the current owner as well, to your knowledge?
I don't have any knowledge of that. No, I'm not certain. I don't believe so.
So as part of the rough draft secondary plan, that particular property was not considered as part of the secondary plan?
Bear with me. I'm just going to bring up my paper copy of the secondary plan. It was included. However, the purpose of that secondary plan exercise was just to provide a preliminary concept for the land surrounding this property.
Right.
And it was specifically for the purpose of demonstrating that this severance wouldn't frustrate it. So the secondary plan that we provided on a preliminary basis showed the development of this property and others, and including this one to the west, which I'm told over my phone is not owned by the applicant.
Okay. But it was included in that draft secondary plan sketch?
Right, there was a preliminary development concept that included that. It's not necessary to the overall development, but
could certainly assist. Okay, and to the second point, the water issues. I know I can understand the neighbor's frustration in this. All I can say with regards to that sounds more like the building permit for the work that's being done. It's not necessarily germane to the severance per se, because we don't develop like site grading plans or anything like that for severances. If it had been a variance, then absolutely. The only thing I could comment on, even though it's not a conditionable thing, is to contact the city if you have drainage issues. I do know that someone building something cannot adversely affect their neighboring property. So if there's drainage issues, I would certainly encourage you to contact the city to have those addressed. So with that, I don't know if the applicant is still on the line. If there's anything else that, there's still a few minutes that you actually have left. If there's something else or if we addressed your questions.
Hello?
Hello, yep.
Hi, I'm still online and I was listening. I have tried calling the bylaw people in regards to this and was told that he did what he did was okay. So I'm having major issues with this. And last year was not a bad year, but I have seen the previous drainage ditch overflowing many times. Now I have to deal with this on a regular basis. It's not acceptable. He is, I mean, if he wants to sever the property, he's going to have to put in a proper drainage ditch. Otherwise, I would rather have it as a road allowance and the property being torn down.
Okay, the committee members could take that under advisement, but generally, like I say, that sounds more like a building permit issue as opposed to a severance issue with regards to that, but we'll certainly take that under consideration. Is there anything else you'd like to add at this time?
No, that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we did have, sorry, Gary?
I just wanted to get some clarity if the last speaker hasn't left. The severance is going to give the road allowance to the area west of the current house under renovation. So I just wanted to clarify that she was talking about tearing the house down and a road allowance there, if I heard that correct. So I'm just wondering if I could get some clarity to her last point. Perhaps I missed that, if she's still there.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello?
She is, yeah.
Hi.
Go ahead, Christine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still here. I was under the understanding that the house was supposed to go down and that was supposed to be the road allowance. I didn't think there would be enough room for a road allowance on the other side of the house between the house that where it was going to be divided and the other piece of property. So I was always told that the road was supposed to be where the house was. And this has been denied before because the house was supposed to be torn down and it was supposed to become a road.
Through you to the planner, David, but this application does indicate that there is going to be 66 feet left, correct, and held until such time as there is a secondary plan.
That is correct, yes.
So there was never anything that you've seen in the file that indicates otherwise?
No, that's correct. That's all we've seen is the road on the west side of the house.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Christine. We do have another person waiting, which we need to pull in next. Okay, so Josephine, we're going to bring you into the meeting, and Christine, you're willing to stay and listen. You don't have to leave, but that's the end of the comments. So as far as Josephine goes, can you hear us, Josephine?
Can you hear me?
We can. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Josephine Sardella, and I live at 577 Barrack Road. My father owns the property to the east of parcel 1. He has 12 acres there. Now, this afternoon, something came to my attention from the Conservation Authority. They provided me with a, not directly, but I got a drawing from the Conservation Authority that indicates that there is a lot on the southwest corner of parcel 2. So given that, I don't see how there's going to be 20 meters left for a road allowance there. So I guess that's my concern. I want to make sure that there is a definite road allowance, because we have always been under the impression that there needed to be 2 road allowances, one from this owner and one from my father's property. And we don't want this to go through and then have the burden of both road allowances on my father's property. So that's basically my concern. I want to ensure that there isn't a lot on the southwest corner of that remaining property on parcel 2.
I'll flip your question to the agent first, and I think the parcel that they're referring to is the same one that we were referring to. If you were able to see the staff report, there is a little map in there, and there is a sectioned off parcel that is in the southwest. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier.
But I've always thought that was a separate owner.
It sounds like it is. I will say, maybe I'll leave it to Matt to comment on the road allowance part of the secondary plan. I know Matt, you offered to put forward, and can that be presented can he step in with a map and show that on the screen? Matt, I think you said you could put that onto the screen. You had the capabilities to do that, even if it's just focused into just that area in question for that road allowance, and like you don't need to show the entire proposed or rough draft, if you will, but just if you can focus in on that area just to the west of the severed parcel there.
So right here where my cursor is moving,
yep,
that's the frontage of the remnant parcel. It's 20.1 meters, and these dashed lines that you can see here are property ownership lines. So notwithstanding what you may or may not have seen from the Conservation Authority, who bases their mapping information on compiled data, we've completed a survey as part of the severance process, and we've confirmed that there's approximately 45 meters of frontage along Barrack Road that are owned by my client. 25 of that are proposed as a residential lot that will contain the existing single detached dwelling, and the balance, 20 or so meters, are proposed to be maintained for future development through a secondary plan process.
Mm-hmm. Well, the plan that I have clearly shows that there's a lot at the southwest corner of parcel 2, and that there lies my concern. I want to make sure that that is definitely going to be a road allowance, because from the drawings I've seen from the Conservation Authority, there's a lot that belongs to somebody else.
Matt, if you could throw that drawing back up there real quick. I think the lot that they're referring to, and I'm speculating here a little bit, but as soon as
I sent Mr. Schultz a copy of that drawing earlier this afternoon.
David, do you have the ability to throw that up on the screen? I think in the sketch, I don't know if you can see that, Josephine, on the screen there or not, but that little corner in the bottom left corner there where the black line is, I think that's the lot that they're referring to.
I believe it is.
Yeah, David's going to throw his, what you sent as well, if we can, up there, just to confirm. And if that's the case, then there is that remnant lot, but however, you don't need that lot for that road allowance. It doesn't look like, based on what was prepared and submitted to the city. I'm just going to see if David could jump in here with the sketch.
Sorry, Amber's just going to pull it up for me here.
Technology is great when it works quick, but I know she's feverishly looking for this little sketch, so. Yeah, so that sketch, that's exactly it. So that little square that you see down there, that's the same one that was on the other sketch. It is not owned by the current owner, apparently, based on what we've been advised here. However, they don't need that parcel to gain access to those to the lot in the rear, which would be the remnant part 2, I believe, or is it part 1? Remnant part 2.
Well, according to this drawing, it's very misleading. Because I mean, according to this drawing,
yep,
the roadway is right where 607 is right now.
It would appear that way, but that's why we needed, and that's why we deferred or denied the previous application, because we didn't know for sure. So what the applicant and the owner has done is prepared a secondary plan draft-ish. It's not official secondary plan yet, but at least could show within the provisions of the existing bylaws that they can put in a road allowance with that remnant property, that remnant piece that does come out to Barrick to satisfy that requirement, because that was our concern as well. So
that will be stipulated in the severance, that there has to be a road allowance?
Yes, well, not necessarily a road allowance, but there is provision, and that was reason for that first requirement in the staff's recommendation for the zoning bylaw, as well as that secondary plan to be adopted, to make sure that there will be a road allowance in there. Otherwise, if it's not, and there's not enough room, then they don't get their severance. So it is a condition of the severance.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there any other public members? We were waiting for the third. Okay, so that's all that I have for the public comments for the application this evening. Does the applicant wish to add any closing remarks or comments based on what was discussed?
Thanks, Chair. I only have one thing to add, which is that I've since received confirmation that the existing dwelling at 607 Barrick is in fact connected to municipal services, including a sanitary sewer. If it's the will of the committee to apply a condition that ensures that, we don't have any objection to that, but the reason why we don't have that objection is because we're already connected. So.
All right, I will leave it to the committee members to consider that when making a motion. So with that, does someone have a recommendation? Donna?
So in through you, Mr. Chair, for application B0520 PC, in the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter 13, Page 13, Section 53(1), and in the matter of the property legally known as part of Lot 31, Concession 3 in the former township of Humberston, now the City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as 607 Barrack Road, and in the matter of an application by the agent Matt Kernahan of Up Canada Consultants for the owner, Colborne Saudi, for severance under Section 53(1) of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, Chapter P13, so as to permit the conveyance of Part 1 having a lot frontage of 25.47 meters with a total lot area of 1.178 meters squared for continued residential use. Part 2 will retain a lot frontage of 20.12 meters on Barrack Road with a total lot area of 3.23 hectares for a future residential, for a future residential development. The consent application B05-20-PC be granted subject to the following conditions. 1. Approval of a zoning bylaw amendment to address lot requirement deficiencies on parcel 2 and to implement a holding provision prohibiting development of the property until a secondary plan has been adopted by the City Council. Number 2, that any existing structures on Part 2 are to be demolished. Number 3, that the owner submit a letter to the city indicating that he or she is aware of the requirements of bylaw 4748-13-05, which requires the collection of the parkland dedication fee at the time of the building permit application based on the value of the property the day before issuance of the permit, and that he or she will advise any future purchasers of this requirement. That the applicant, number 4, that the applicant provides the Secretary Treasurer with the deeds in triplicate for conveyance of the subject parcel or a registratable legal description of the subject parcel, together with a paper and digital copy of the deposited reference plan, if applicable, for use in the issuance of the certificate of consent. Number 5, that a final certification fee of $208 payable to the City of Port Colborne be submitted to the Secretary Treasurer. And number 6, that all conditions of consent be fulfilled by September the 9th, 2021. For the following reasons. Number 1, the application conforms to the policies of the Regional Official Plan, City of Port Colborne Official Plan, and will also comply with the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30-18 as amended. And of note, no public, oh, no, we did receive something. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder to that? Gary?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm wondering if you would be so kind to repeat the good wording you had there with respect to if I could make an amendment to this to member Caleb with respect to the assurance that the existing dwelling at 607 is on full municipal services, just to deal with the septic tank issue.
Yep.
I wish I had written down what you said, Mr. Chair.
I have it written down for the most part. Just to change condition 2 to read that any existing structures on Part 2 be demolished, including the septic bed, or provide a certificate acceptable to the city indicating that the septic bed has been completely decommissioned. So if that's acceptable to Donna and Gary?
That's good for me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other
Yes,
questions?
Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. And this last application, Mr. Secretary, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this application is for A07-20-PC for the property known as the south side of Oast Avenue. That's a friendly correction there. In the matter of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, CP 13 as amended, and Section 6.5A and G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as part of Lot 35 on Plan 870, Part 1 on Reference Plan 59R 16660, Township of Humberstone, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as the vacant lot on the south side of Oast Avenue. and in the matter of an application by the owners Laura Grabentz Cade and Lisa Isherwood for relief from the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/3018 as amended under section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the construction of a 312 square meter semi-detached dwelling, notwithstanding the following. 1, that a minimum lot frontage of 15.9 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum lot frontage of 18 meters is required for semi-detached dwellings. And 2, that a maximum lot coverage of 54% be permitted, whereas a maximum lot coverage of 50% is required for semi-detached dwellings. The applicant is seeking permission to build a semi-detached dwelling on the vacant property on the south side of Oast Avenue. Due to the existing lot frontage and proposed lot coverage, the minor variance is required. So, we do have correspondence from the Planning Division. Planning staff has reviewed the referenced application and offer the following comments for the hearing on Wednesday, September 9th. Notice was circulated on August 28th, 2020, and the following written correspondence has been received. So I'll just go through that. From B. Kenny, 125 Oast Avenue, she opposes the application. A reduction of 2.1 meters from the required lot frontage is not acceptable for this neighborhood. Covering more than 50% of the property is too great of a variance. Loss of privacy for the neighbors due to the height of the dwelling. All single-family dwellings on the street, the size of the lot does not accommodate a multiple dwelling. B is also here to speak as a delegate, so I will let her go further with her comments if she wishes. Gina Manny of 134 Oast Avenue does not agree with semi-detached dwelling being built on this property, as the neighborhood is all single detached dwellings. Joanne Davis of 98 Oast Avenue opposes the application, worried about a loss of privacy in her rear yard due to the height. Single family neighborhood, this is too large of a building for the size of the lot. A reduction of the lot frontage from 18 meters to 15.9 meters is not minor in her opinion. A 4% increase in lot coverage is not acceptable. Would like to see the committee impose conditions to restrict windows on the second level facing her yard and further further not allow a porch off the second level should this application be approved. Kim Sutherland of 102 Franklin Avenue opposes the application. Will be able to see the proposed dwelling from her backyard. Right now she sees trees. If this is approved, they will only see a building. She also hopes that the committee will only allow a single family dwelling on this property. Robert Reiki is also a delegate this evening. He's from 128 Oast Avenue. He says that the dwelling is too large for the lot and street. It would be an eyesore in a mature block such as this one. He would not be opposed to a single family dwelling on the lot. An oversized building will drop the values of all housing, including the one being built. Sean Morrison, I didn't get an address from Sean, but he opposes the application. The variances are not minor in nature in his opinion. Very significant reductions in the rear yard and front yard setbacks. Placement of a semi-detached dwelling will change the character of the neighborhood. Suggests that a single detached home be built on the property. Concerns with parking and concerns with privacy of adjacent neighbors. Casey Cornwall of 124 Oast Avenue. Casey left me a voicemail with her concerns. She does not want to see a semi built on the property. It's far too big for the property. The height is much taller than her dwelling, and it will depreciate the property values of the neighborhood. I also have comments from Anita Sheev, who is writing this letter on behalf of her mother, Benita Reiki, who lives at 113 Oast Avenue. Benita has lived on the street for 68 years. She does not approve of this duplex being built across the street from her home. All of the housing in this neighborhood are single-family dwellings. As more lots were sold and newer homes came in, they blended with the existing ones. Most of the homes on the street were built from nothing by the people who still live in this neighborhood. She thinks that this duplex will be an eyesore and reduce the property values of the homes. The height of the duplex will also tower over any other home in the surrounding area. Its modern design will not fit with the current designs of any other homes of the surrounding blocks. The neighborhood is full of mature trees, but the builder wants the city to allow almost a 10% variance in the amount of green space that the city deems required for buildings such as a duplex. Allowing such a variance not only takes away from the potential land from buyers, but ruins the overall ambience of the neighborhood. The builder is asking to put their feelings aside and their future aside to allow them to build 2 homes in the place of 1 for their own profit. Sacrificing the quality of outdoor spaces of their potential buyers and creates backyards with less than 400 square feet of area for their personal gain. I will get into that a little further. I did address their further comments in the rest of my report. They had concerns with the error on the notice, which referred to an Oast Street instead of an Oast Avenue. I acknowledge that mistake. That was a typo. And in my opinion, because there isn't an Oast Street in Port Colborne, it does not affect the application. If there was an Oast Street, it would be a little confusing. I understand that, but moving on. Sorry. We also received a petition from the neighbors of the area. This petition was signed by roughly 40 or so people opposing the application for minor variance. And then they all signed this printout that states, this new larger build proposed will have a negative public effect because of its enormous size compared to the established houses on Oast Street. The larger maximum lot coverage of 54% requested instead of honoring the present 50% lot coverage set out in our present bylaws for semi-detached dwellings will create a negative effect of the public interest. Each neighbor around will be negatively impacted, losing their right to privacy because of the size of this huge build. The consistency and the look of the family neighborhood will be affected by the increased size of this proposed new build, resulting in a negative effect for the adjacent and nearby lots in the neighborhood. The request for a minimum frontage of 15.7 meters instead of honoring the 18 meters set out in our bylaws negatively obstructs the other neighbor's line of sight. Line of sight will be blocked when looking down the street with this new build, sticking out farther than the other homes requested in this application for a variance of smaller frontage. The proposed frontage change of 15.7 meters and increase in size of building of 54% of the lot creates a huge negative effect on the public's interest in this neighborhood. Alternatively, a smaller, more congruent build that visually fits within the present homes on the street following the present zoning bylaws would be attractive and an add to the neighborhood. I object to the variances proposed in this application and would like to attend the virtual public hearing on September 9th, 2020. I believe that concludes the correspondence from the public. I'll just finish up with the planning recommendation here. So staff has acknowledged the concerns from the public and have responded to a majority of these questions. In response to the loss of privacy due to the height of the proposed building is within the maximum height requirements of the zoning bylaw. Dwellings, regardless if they are single detached or semi-detached, are permitted all over the city of Port Colborne a height of 11 meters. The neighborhood is all single-family homes. While this may be the case, the zoning bylaw does permit single-detached, semi-detached, and duplex dwellings in the R2 zone. This zoning has been in place as an effort to increase housing supply and create more affordable options for citizens. The proposed dwelling will result in a reduction in home value. Although staff are not licensed appraisers, we have no evidence to the contrary that a semi-detached dwelling will result in any reduction in home values, nor should this be a factor in considering the application. The extent of the variances are not minor. The Committee of Adjustment will make a decision on this statement. However, staff are of the opinion that the variances requested are minor in nature. Significant reductions in rear or front yard setbacks. The proposed rear and front yard setbacks comply with the zoning bylaw. The only reductions or variations from the bylaw are for the lot frontage and lot coverage. So planning staff concludes that minor variance application A07-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. One, it is minor in nature, as the 4% increase in lot coverage and 2.1 meter reduction in lot frontage for the semi-detached dwelling is a reasonable and measurable request. Two, it is appropriate for the development of the site, since the proposed dwelling will be located in a suitable location on the site. Three, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw, as semi-detached dwellings are permitted in the R2 zone. Four, it is desirable and in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the official plan, as residential uses are permitted in areas with the urban residential designation. Signed, David Schultz, planner, and signed and reviewed by Dan Aquilina, the Director of Planning and Development. I believe that concludes the written correspondence received, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Can we bring the applicant, or the agent for the applicant in?
Yep, Laura is
Laura, can you hear us?
something that will share.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm speaking for Laura Gerbank and Smart Fisherwood here.
And she is there with you?
Yes, I'm right here.
All right, perfect. Is there anything you'd like to add at this time, based on the comments?
No, we agree with the recommendation from the city that 4% increase in lot coverage is a minor variance, and that 2.1 reduction in the lot frontage is a reasonable and measurable request. The zoning, the R2 zoning allows for a semi. We're within the height requirements of within the city and all the other parameters. So we're just basically looking for a minor variance of 4% and a 2.1 meter reduction. It's a square lot. There's services there. It's within the urban boundary. It helps with affordability and helps with the density for the city, more taxes for the city, and yeah, it helps secure, keep the agricultural land agricultural, and yeah, helps the city of Port Colborne.
All right, thank you. Is there any members that wish to ask any questions of the applicant this evening? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. Is there an intention? Okay, so one of the concerns that I'm hearing from the residents is that privacy is a factor. Is there anything that you intend to do on the property that will mitigate that impact?
No, there isn't anything that I could foresee that would eliminate the privacy. Not going to do a balcony. You know, there's going to be a porch in the back there. But yeah, there's nothing that I could see. There's not going to be any windows on the side. Yeah, there's nothing that should change the privacy of the neighborhood.
Okay, through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. Are there fences along the property?
Currently, there is a wood fence on that would be the east border and the south border, east and south border of the property line right now.
And would you put a fence on the west?
Yeah, we could put a fence on the west, yes.
Okay, but I'll leave it to the other members to speak, but I have another question as well.
Does any other members have any questions? Gary?
So I don't know if you recognize me. I couldn't quite hear you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry.
Is that for me?
Yeah, I forgot to turn on my mic. Go
Sorry.
ahead, Gary.
Thank you. Actually, Member Beauregard asked one question I was going to about the fence. Through you to David, if I could. David, with respect to then the R2 zoning, so would I be correct in assuming that anybody either in that neighborhood or anywhere in Port Colborne zoned R2 could actually even tear down their house and build a semi if it fit those requirements, because it is R2 as well? And is to the extent of where is R2 just on Oast, or is it in that whole quadrant there of subdivision?
To my knowledge, the R2 zone is for most of the area in that area. And yes, you are correct by saying that if you did own a house in the R2 zone, you could tear it down and put up a semi-detached on that house. Even if it doesn't meet the lot frontage requirements, because it's an existing lot of record, existing lots of records are exempt from the lot frontage and lot area requirements listed under the semi-detached dwelling requirements.
Okay, thank you. That's it for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other members that wish to ask any questions of the applicant? Eric, did you want to finish up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicants. I see that there's 3 of what looks to be trees on that property. Do you plan
Yes.
on cutting them down?
Yeah, they are in the hydro lines, so I think it's in the best neighborhood interest of the neighborhood for them to be taken down. I know the wind that can happen, and they have low roots. They are evergreen trees, so it's just a matter of time for them to fall down naturally and take out the hydro line. So they are in a position of affecting the neighborhood as is.
Do you have any objections to replanting trees elsewhere in just to make up for those 3?
Yeah, not a problem to replant trees. I think that's a great thing to do, and I would definitely put something on the boulevard. And yeah, I have no objections to replanting those trees.
Okay, so that concludes my questions. Thank you.
Sorry, Donna, any questions?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to the applicant. I noticed as well, there were actually 2 trees on the boulevard. So my assumption would be that those 3 in the middle would be coming down in order to make room as well for the driveways to go up the middle, so as to maintain, it looked like, some front yardage to the sides. And I was assuming that the trees on the boulevard would probably remain, which would at least leave a couple there. Was that the original intent of that?
Hadn't really gotten to the point of removing the trees. I just noticed that they were like I said, they were in the hydro lines, and they are at risk of coming down. I will take into consideration the recommendation that any trees that I do need to take down, I would replace.
Yeah, those ones I agree with you. They do look pretty big, the ones in the middle of the property at the front. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak or ask the applicant any questions? Not seeing any. So with that, I believe there's 3 requests to speak to this application. I believe they're all there.
Kenny's not here, but Greg Fox, I just brought him in.
Okay, so we'll go with Greg first. Greg, if you can unmute your mic and just your name and address for the record, and it's all yours.
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, my name's Greg Fox. I've lived at 95 Oast Avenue for about 11 years this month. I think a lot of my questions were kind of brought up previously by Mr. Beauregard, and some of my concerns, anyway, are with this build. Definitely, I'd like to echo the concern that it doesn't go with the character of the street at all. And I did have concerns also about the trees that were on the property. We do have enough suburbia in town that doesn't have any old growth trees. The applicant has stated that they are in the way of the hydro lines. I just looked out my window and I don't see any hydro lines in the trees. That's the first I've heard of that. So I'm wondering if they can speak to which hydro lines are in the trees. And I was wondering if there was any plan to have any short-term rentals at this address, or if it was just going to be flipped like the house was at 114.
Is that all of your questions?
That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So maybe the applicant can address those. Your microphone's on mute.
Yeah, if we don't need to have to take down any trees, we'd be happy to leave them. What was the other question? Was the rental? As we haven't made any long-term decisions on whether we are going to hold and keep them or sell them to new people to move in the neighborhood. At this point, we are just focused on getting the 4% increase and the minor variance for the 2.1 meter reduction.
Okay, thank you. I do, although I can't share it on the screen, I did take a picture and I'm looking at the picture right now. The hydro lines on that street, I was across the street when I took the picture, so I don't see them in that particular picture, but I don't know if they're above ground hydro lines on that street or underground. I'm going to assume they're probably above ground, and they might be on the north side of the street. And I'll assume that to service these properties, you're going to have to run overground lines, so they'll go across, and probably those trees would be in the way for the actual dwelling to connect the hydro. Unless they do an underground service up the pole or something like that, but I'm not sure what the protocols there are. But you are correct. I don't see anything on the south side of Oust Avenue with regards to power lines, unless they come in from the back.
The power lines, Mr. Chair, are on the north side.
Yeah, so that's why I don't see them in the picture. But yeah, I'm assuming that to run the power into these two dwellings, they're going to have to go right where those trees are. So with that being said, is there anything else, Greg, that you have?
No, just I'd just like to express again, it does not really go with the character of the neighborhood. It's clear that Mark, Lisa, and Laura are not really caring about how it does impact the character of the neighborhood. They are really in it for financial gain. It does seem. I can't really blame them, but as a resident of the street, and I've gotten to know a lot of people on the street. And echoing the Reedkeys that live next door, there have been original residents of this street that were immigrants to this area who built the homes on this street, 60 years ago. And I was fortunate enough to know some of them that built my house, and they recently passed away. It's just, it would be a shame if something that doesn't fit the character of the single family homes existing on the street were to be built. And that's just my opinion. And with that, that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else sitting there? All right, Robert, just going to bring you in there. There you go. Just unmute your mic, and Rob, you should be good to go. Rob, you just have to unmute your mic, Rob. Hello, Rob.
Hello?
Oh, there we go. Perfect. The floor is yours.
We have 4 residents of the street here. We've been listening to what's been happening. Yes, when it comes to those big trees, we do have the overhead power lines that do come from the north across. So they would have to be taken down, not just for the hydro lines, but also for any kind of driveway for those homes. One of the biggest concerns we have is the privacy issue. There are 2 homes on either side. One has just been purchased under the assumption, as far as we've been told or under any understanding, that a single family dwelling would be built on that lot, if there was anything to be built on that lot. And also, I mean, this is a mature street, which houses started being built in 52 and the last one was built in 85. So architecturally, a new design kind of home on this street would just be completely, totally out of place. And other concerns would be drainage. I mean, with such a large roof structure grabbing what runoff, how it would affect the adjacent homes on either side, and also over on Borden Avenue. We just have some major concerns, being a single family dwelling street, mature, old style sewer, drainage, what kind of effect a building this size would do to the surrounding homes in all aspects.
Okay, is that the extent of your comments or questions?
For myself, yes. Now, there are three other residents here. Is it okay for them to speak their views?
Yeah, if you're done, all I will ask is that when they do come on one at a time, if they can state their name and address for the record, and they'll be allotted the same 10 minutes.
All right.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Trafford. I recently purchased 114 Oast Avenue from the people that are asking to redesign the lot with a two-story dwelling. And when I purchased the home, I was made to believe that a single-family dwelling was to be put there. If I would have known that these people wanted to put a two-story monstrosity beside me, I would have never spent the money I did to purchase the house from them. I don't know why they were not forthcoming and letting us know that they were going to do something like that on this street that's beautiful the way it is. And why was my letter not read with everybody else's?
I think if
I apologize if I missed it. I have a lot of letters here. I apologize if I missed your letter. I can read it out now if you wish. But I can assure you that all the letters were circulated to the committee members ahead of time. It just might have been missed that you didn't get it read out. Yeah.
Now we'll get David to read it out in its entirety. It looks like it's only about a paragraph or so.
Yeah. So I'll read it word for word. I am writing this letter and give our permission for all committee members to read. I am writing on behalf of my father, Jim Jolie, my daughter, Haley Trafford, and myself, Kimberly Trafford, as all three of us are owners of our house on 114 Oast Avenue. We are submitting this letter to oppose this application for a minor variance change on what is legally known as part of Lot 35 on Plan 870. It is not a minor variance change, it is a major variance change. When we purchased our home from the same people we are now aware that own the lot next door, we were told a single-family dwelling was going to be built at some point. Less than a month after purchase, this application for a two-story duplex with major variance comes out. This existing neighborhood has existing single-family homes all within the same height. We three are all opposed to a two-story duplex as it will tower over the street, blocking views and infringing into the privacy on our existing homes surrounding this lot. If you should choose to let this application move forward, we would appreciate that no windows on the second story and a privacy fence be built. We really appreciate you rejecting this application and recommend a similar dwelling that would match the houses that already exist on our neighborhood, not letting them build something that would stick out like a sore thumb. Thank you for reading our letter to the entire committee, and we hope you will truly consider turning down this application.
Is there anything further you'd like to add, Kimberly?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I believe there was one more that was on that call for your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi. My name is Joanne Davis. I reside at 98 Oast Avenue. And I have extreme restrictions in regards to this application. I am devastated. My privacy will be inflicted the majority. Not only will I lose my privacy in my backyard, which is all I have left to myself, my sunlight will be gone. It'll be compromised drastically. And also, I only have 4 feet from my property line to this monstrosity building, which will be blocking everything. I reside with my daughter and my grandson, and I will, this is all we have, and there you go. Hello?
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 Yeah, you're still there.
Yep, okay.
And this is all that we got. left is our home and our peace and solace in my backyard, and it will be for everyone to view, and I will not have any privacy whatsoever. Not only infringing that, there is, we have an old drainage system which goes into the back. Our sewers are in the back from Borden to O's, and they're very, very, very old. I know that we've had issues in regards to the drainage on our street, and what will that do to the homes that are existing there now? Also, it's just the loss of privacy. I don't know if I'll be able to stay at this residence. I've been here since 1991, raised my family, worked hard. We worked hard to fix our property, fence it off so that my grandchildren can play in a nice backyard and not to be constricted. And there's no parking on this street. It's a very, in the wintertime, I'm not sure how, and I know there's going to be issues because people have been fined. If their vehicles are on the side of the road, there will not be enough room to park any vehicles in this newly designed super duper duplex, which will overpower everybody's privacy in our yard. I have no objection to a home going in there, but keep it in regards to the rest of the neighborhood. And there's an awful lot of upset people who have been here for very many years. It seems, greed is king, right? We know what greed's all about, and it's all about making the money. And if I would have had the opportunity back 20 years ago, my neighbor, I would have begged and borrowed and pleaded, which I did, to purchase that property so that I wouldn't have to worry about having an eyesore stuck on top of my head all day, all night. And then in the neighborhood, which neighbors, there's not going to be enough room. And I feel sorry for my neighbor also who just purchased this home. That's quite a shock to learn that, oh, you've been lied to. And that's quite offensive for a family to be embarking onto a beautiful street and be told, oh, by the way, you're going to be bombarded with this huge building inside you. And I wish you would really reconsider. I went around, I petitioned. A lot of the neighbors that have been here are quite upset in regards to this eyesore coming in our neighborhood. I hope you can reconsider our letters, please, and thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chair. It's B. Kenny.
There you go, B. Floor is yours.
I'm great, Mr. Chair. How's yourself?
Pretty good.
I'm one of the neighbors who are very upset about this building being constructed on Oast Avenue. And as Mr. Schultz said, it's only a minor thing about the street. It's not a street. It's never been a street. My house was the first one built on Oast Avenue. It was built in 1952. I wasn't the first person in it, but we own it now. You've received our petition. We went around the neighborhood, Kim and Joanne, and asked anybody that had received the notification. That was most important. I said, make sure you ask the people if they received the notification, and they had. I think only 2 people had not, and they lived right on Oast Avenue. But the ones that had received all signed that they did not want this dwelling on this mature street. Greg pointed out actually, that's the best way to put it. It's just for profit. The person that purchased that property would first of all, they did the severance. And we were okay with the severance. I said, it just gives another opportunity to have an infilling of a home there. So that's what they did first. And then Kim bought the house without the lot. And right away, when she saw the empty lot, again, she was told, don't worry, only a single family dwelling. Of course, he's going to tell her that because he wants to sell the house, the other house. So that was very upsetting to us then. She was really not told the truth. This person had every intention right from the beginning to try to put this duplex in. We are not happy about it. We want it to stay single-family homes on this street. I think the other applicant said he's not going to disturb. I think with his application on Barrack, I won't be disturbing anything in the neighborhood. Well, this application is totally opposite that. This application is disturbing everything on the street. He will have to take down a tree on the boulevard for sure, and that's a city-owned street. The city put all those streets on the boulevard years ago, and the two great big pine streets, he's going to take them down too because he needs them for his driveway. So I'm not happy. I can tell you that all the residents on the street are very unhappy, and I don't think that one person should be able to come in to a neighborhood, a mature neighborhood, and disturb the whole neighborhood because he's decided he's greedy guts, that's the only word I can use, and wants to put two dwellings smack dab in the, for profit. It's all for profit. I think that you should consider all the people who sent you their objections, consider the petition that was presented to you, and hope that you make the wise decision and not allow this application to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that's on the line there that wishes to speak?
No, I think we've spoken.
Thank you. And I don't believe we have anyone else that's requested to speak. So with that, I'll leave, I see Angie and Gary have their hands up, so we'll go to Angie first for comments.
Thank you, Dan. Through you, I think to David, we've been hearing some discussion around trees and boulevard trees, and I was there today looking at that, and I do see that those trees are going to have to come down in order to accommodate construction. I didn't see hydro wire, but I would imagine to accommodate construction. This is a reasonably small lot for such a large building. But my concern is the promise to replace those trees and the idea of using boulevard trees. And my understanding is Port Colborne was no longer allowing boulevard trees. So maybe we could clear that up and see, you know, where the replacement of trees could happen.
We're about the trees and we're about goddamn land. Sorry, will we put on land?
Hello.
Hello. Okay. So, David.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Member Demery. The engineering department, I believe I don't know if it was a few years ago, but they brought it to council to eliminate boulevard trees from new developments. So I'm not sure if they would require those to be replaced. I know boulevard trees have caused a lot of issues in the city with respect to the services within the road allowance being damaged from the root systems and the trees themselves. So I'm not sure we could clarify that with engineering, that through the municipal consent permit process, if they would consider allowing the trees to be replaced.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm just concerned with people being promised something and then it not being able to be delivered. So why set that up if it's not there? I don't believe they can replace trees on the boulevard, but those trees that are on there now will be coming down, and that's a further loss of privacy and a loss of that neighborhood atmosphere. So it's something that I feel that we should be clearing up in some way with some kind of assurance of maybe special landscaping or something to add as a bit of a noise buffer, a bit of a privacy piece, something like that.
Thank you. Gary?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to address just, wasn't the 2 points I'm going to bring up, but to Member Damaris's point. If a tree dies or the city does remove it from the boulevard, there usually is a request of the owner to take on board a tree on their property side. So I might add that in with the two questions that I have to the owner. If they do come down or the city takes them down, does he have room and can he do some tree work in the front of the yard? Back to Kimberly's question at 114 Oast to the owner, if I could. You'd answered Eric and myself about having a privacy fence along the side of your property. I just wanted to ensure that, is that on the side of 114 Oast? And I'm wondering if you could reiterate what you said about where there would or would not be windows, and is that on the side of 114 Oast? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
To the applicant, if you could answer those questions. Your mic's on.
Okay, yeah,
There we
so with the trees, yeah, if they will not let us put them on the boulevard, then there is a spot beside the driveway and the front porch to put a tree on either side. If you're looking at the site plan that was site sketch there that was provided, and you know, there's definitely room in the back as well to put two along the fence line there as well. So we'd be happy to put 4 trees on the property, and be happy to enclose the last remaining spots on the property, which would be the west side of the property line, with a fence, a privacy fence as well. In regards to, I hear recommendations as in regards to a duplex. We are not building a duplex. We are building 2 semi-detaches. If we were building a duplex, we wouldn't need this minor variance, from my understanding, nor would we need the minor variance if we were to build a single detached dwelling, but we'd be able to use close to the same size of the space, and yeah, in the same height. So as per privacy, whether it's a semi-detached or a single residential dwelling or a duplex, the privacy is, I don't believe that would be an issue. Whatever's built there is going to be built there, and we thought of a semi-detached because it would be more affordable. It would increase density for the city. The neighborhood is going to be transitioning. It's zone 2. Semi-detached properties are permitted. I'm not asking for a zoning change. It is within the official plan. There was mentioned earlier whether, if a house was torn down, whether 2 semi-detached dwellings could be built there. The answer was yes. The increase of 4% is minor in nature, as a recommendation from the city. We are absolutely, once again, no problems with replanting trees and providing a fence on the the west side. So as in the intent of designing the building, we would be trying to design something that would fit the neighborhood. There are some semi-detached dwellings that that are hard to tell whether they are single family or semi-detached. Yeah, that's it. I understand the concern from the neighborhood, in the sense of people have lived there 60 years. This lot has sat vacant from the previous owner for 50, 60 years. Yeah, I can understand that that change is challenging for some. And like, as I was saying, the Niagara region is growing, and density is one of the things that's going on, because there's a lot of pressure within the Niagara region on the agricultural sector, because Niagara region is one of the places where we can actually grow tender fruit. During this pandemic, if we needed to, Niagara region supplies a lot of Canada in agricultural, and it's a beautiful place to live. So you have a lot of retired people who want to move to Niagara, which there's a lot of pressure on the agricultural sector as well as the residential sector. It's a lot of pressure on city officials to work within parameters within the city boundaries and make sure that the land is used efficiently. and based on the zoning and the official plan, and only a 4% increase, it's from our standpoint, it is a minor variance and yeah, should be approved.
Thank you. Gary?
Yes, one of the other questions I had asked of the applicant with respect to windows on you mentioned was it one side or one end does not have windows?
We haven't got to that part. We were looking in the sense of the getting the 4% and starting with that. My assumption is we're going to put windows on the front and the back for the bedrooms upstairs. So the sides we didn't we don't need to put windows on the side of the house.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Donna?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know we were talking about the trees, and I know they're very important to me as well. I think that we really need to be planting trees. I wondered if I could make an amendment and ask that our city gardener, David, be involved, and perhaps we put a limit on this and say that they must replant 4 trees, working with the city gardener for appropriate trees for the size and the space, so that we're not looking at trees that are 2 feet tall that are going to take 40 years to grow. We have Dave involved with something that will add to the neighborhood almost immediately, and appropriate ones for the house and where they're located. He's very good at picking out the kinds of things that we need to put in.
We can certainly look at that consideration. Does anyone else have any comments? I will just add, based on what the applicant just stated about different configurations. A couple of the comments I would like to clarify, and I'll have David jump in if I say something in error here, because one of the comments that you made is one of the questions that I asked. One of it has to do with if this was a duplex versus a semi, the lot width requirement would still be there, and you'd still need the variance if it was a duplex. If it was a single detached home, then you are correct, you wouldn't need the variance for the width, but you would still need the variance for the overall footprint, or that 54% versus 50%. Unless you, with a single family home, you chopped off a couple feet in the back to get you into that 50% range. I do agree that the 2-story, I know people's concerns are about the height and the sight lines. Like I say, I did go to the property, I took some pictures, so I had them for reference this evening. I can appreciate that most of the other buildings on that street avenue, are single story properties. There are a few 1.5-story properties. I noticed one over on the other side of 114, believe has a 1.5-story with a window on that side property looking at theirs as well. So that would be basically equivalent the way it's configured similar to a 2-story. So they have a window on that side as well as comparators. So I do appreciate the fact that this is a change and infilling. I don't really have any comment with regards to what the owner at 114 was told when they purchased their property. The one thing I will end my comments with is that the zoning does permit for a semi-detached dwelling as being requested here. Yes, but for the width, they need the variance and the overall lot coverage. However, the unfortunate part, and to use a marine metaphor, the ship has sailed on that, as it is zoned for this permission of a duplex and or semi and or single family home. So we're not here to debate what is permissible there. That is permissible there, and we're not, the applicant's not asking for a variance for that. So that's all the comments that I have. I know there's been lengthy comments from the public, correspondence, petition. But when it really comes down to, for this committee to decide, is the width of the lot minor in nature, and is the overall area of the proposed dwelling minor in nature, and appropriate for the neighborhood that it's in. It does comply. I don't think there's any question with regards to two of the tests, with regards to the zoning bylaw, as well as the official plan and the intent thereof. So it really comes down to those two items. I look to the other committee members to put forward a motion with regards to that. I do agree that we do have the ability to add some conditions to the variance. The trees, we can certainly add a provision to add trees. We can define 4 trees. The one thing that I would be a little bit cautious of, I've been on this committee for 14 years and we've added conditions in the past. The cautious part that I would add is when you add things like trees and fences, when they fall down, do they then need to be replaced and maintained in perpetuity, and what defines a tree, and all of those kind of things. I would suggest that if we do add those conditions, that they be at time of construction or final grading plan and the like. I know I believe there was another comment about drainage. Typically, and again, I'll defer to David if I say something wrong here, typically when a building permit is requested, there's also a requirement for a site grading plan to make sure that whatever runoff comes from this property and whatever dwellings are there do not adversely affect the neighbors. So that would have to be addressed to make sure that the runoff from this property does not go into the other properties. So that should be addressed at time of building permit. And certainly, the fence to the west, I do know that the applicant has stated that they're willing to put a privacy fence. Whether it's there or it's not, we can add it as a condition. All I will say is if we add it as a condition, privacy fences sometimes can be more troublesome than they might be worth, but we can certainly consider that of adding it, and again, maintaining it over time would be a requirement. The window issue, like I said, I'm not a building official. I'm sure you can limit some windows, but I would think that, obviously you want egress and access for fire and so on and so forth with windows. Certainly I'm not an expert in that field, but I guess that can be considered a consideration. I think we've added that before where there's no windows. Typically it's more on an accessory building than on a primary building, but those are things that be considered. So with that, those are the only comments that I have. I don't have anything specific for the applicant. I will turn the floor for any final questions or comments from committee members, and if there's none there, then I would certainly ask for a motion to move forward. So Eric, do you have a question or?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. My question is just to David. Unfortunately, I would like to read out a resolution. However, I don't have the resolution in front of me. For some reason, I can't access the attachment that is supposed to be there in my email. So just maybe if you can forward it to me again or
through you,
Mr.
Mr. Chair, I can try to forward it. It looks like I lost connection to my email though. Let me just try to re-forward the email on my iPad.
If we could, I could, if no one else has any other comments or questions to ask, maybe I can ask one of the other members to move it. By them doing that, they'll be reading it. And Eric, if I can leave it open for you to second, and if there's something you want to amend, maybe you can do it at that point, if that's would suffice.
That works.
Okay. Can I ask any of the other members to make a motion? No one wants to read it? All right, I will make the motion then, since no one else wants to go forward. So I will move that application A07-20-PC in the matter of the Planning Act RSO 1990 CP13 as amended, and section 6.5A and G of the City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended, and in the matter of the property legally known as Part Lot 35 on Plan 870 Part 1 on Reference Plan 59R-16660, Township of Humberston, City of Port Colborne, Regional Municipality of Niagara, municipally known as a vacant lot on the south side of Ost Avenue. And in the matter of the application of the owners Laura Grebeck Cade and Lisa Urshwood for relief of the provisions of zoning bylaw 6575/30/18 as amended under Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 CP 13, so as to permit the construction of a 312 square meter semi-detached dwelling notwithstanding the following. 1. That the minimum lot frontage of 15.9 meters be permitted, whereas a minimum lot frontage of 18 meters is required for a semi-detached dwelling. And 2, that a maximum lot coverage of 54% be permitted, whereas the maximum lot coverage of 50% is required for a semi-detached dwelling. The applicant is seeking permission to build a semi-detached dwelling on the vacant land, on the vacant property on the south side of Ost Avenue due to the existing lot frontage and proposed lot coverage. A minor variance is required. And that minor variance application A07-20-PC be granted for the following reasons. 1, that minor in nature as the 4% increase in the lot coverage and the 2.1 meter reduction in the lot frontage of the semi-detached dwelling is reasonable and measurable, is a measurable request. 2, appropriate for the development of the site since the proposed dwelling will be located on a suitable location on the site. 3, desirable in compliance in the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw as semi-detached dwellings were permitted in the R2 zone. 4, desirable in compliance with the general intent and purpose of the the official plan as residence uses are permitted in this area in the urban residential designation. I would maybe go on, Eric, if I might. I know you were going to second this, but to add the following conditions. That 4 trees be replaced and planted on the boulevard if possible, or on the property in total, and that they be planted at the time of final construction prior to the final occupancy permits being granted. Condition 2, that a privacy fence be placed on the west side of the property that is in compliance with the applicable zoning bylaws for fencing. I would go so far as to say with the windows, but I'll leave that one should anyone want to add that, but just with those 2 conditions. So with that, I'll look for a seconder. Eric? Questions or comments? And I see Gary's still got his hand up, so Gary, the floor is yours.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The applicant did indicate his window preference, front and back. So to your point, I would like to put in, I think I don't know if we need to do something with relation to building code and fire department, because your point about egress is well taken. But if we could put, if permissible by building and fire department, no windows on west side of second floor.
Okay, just the west side? Or both sides?
That's the one I guess I took notes while people were speaking, 114, but I don't know if there was an issue on the other side or not. So I don't know if anybody else had heard that.
I see 2 hands up, so we'll go to Angie first and then to Donna.
Thanks, Dan. I would actually like to further amend that to say both sides of the building, just to keep things balanced properly. That makes sense.
Sure.
Donna, did you have something to add, or was that the same?
No, through you, Mr. Chair. It makes me nervous to say to limit no windows on either side of a building. When you're looking at a building of this length and a whole top floor, which is bedrooms, and you're saying you can only have a window in the front or the back, you could end up with a bedroom with absolutely no windows in it. So I'm not a builder, but I think we're really stepping out of our bounds here to say a building with no windows on either side. I think it's really stretching it. Just how I feel about it.
So with that being said, I won't ask this be a friendly amendment, but Gary, I'll ask that you make a motion to add this condition to the application?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I was just, I put that in the way that I did with respect to if, like, the applicant more than anybody here knows what his house is going to look like, and he talks about front and back. So to me, that says something about the length and depth of the bedrooms. So I can only go by what he has volunteered to answer, but that's why I put in the codicil of fire and building approval. I'm sure that if the fire department says, you know, you've got a mid-room here, you've got no egress, no, the building inspector is going to say you have to put a window in, and the fire department's going to say that in the circulation of the building permit. So, you know, I do recognize that they may need that out for the reasons you stated, Donna. But I think that in this case, the applicants volunteered that, and there is, he won't be tied to it if building or fire say you can't do that. So I'd like to stick with that motion, that amendment, Mr. Chair.
Donna, would that, if we change the wording to also add that provided it does not violate building code?
Oh, I'll be all right with that if you can say that, if it doesn't violate building code.
Okay, Eric, you okay with that friendly amendment?
I'm not in support of the amendment.
Okay, so then Gary, I'll ask that you put the motion on the floor to add that condition to the application. You're mute there, Gary.
I beg your pardon. Thank you. Yes, I would like to put that forward as a friendly amendment.
We'll make it an actual official amendment. Do I get a seconder to that motion? Angie? Any other questions or comments on the adding or amending of that condition? Okay, maybe before we go for a vote, the applicant apparently would like to add in, I guess I should have went to them as well. Do you have some comments with regards to the amendment?
Yeah, I do, just in regards to the window. So, you know, I am listening to the neighbors in the neighborhood in regards to privacy and concerns from that. So when I was thinking about windows, I was, let me be more specific, in the windows on the second story.
Yes.
Is more of the lines of what I was thinking of losing privacy. Windows along the side, and obviously for the basement, they are going to be on the side of the houses. It was more in the sense of the second story for the windows. Now, if there's going to be a window upstairs on the side, it would be a frosted window, and it would be in regards to a bathroom up there. But you know, it would be, I don't have the exact plans in front of me that I would be building, but the windows would be the second story. I would not have any windows looking on their side unless it was a frosted window, and limit the number of windows as well, right?
That's great, Mr. Chair. I'm supportive of upper level only.
Okay. And that
upper limit, and how about a frosted window if it is on upper on the side, on the upper?
Fine, sure.
Okay, so I'll ask a friendly amendment to the amendment to add that windows on the second story and or either no windows or they be opaque in nature so that they're permanently opaque. So with that, I believe Angie, you second the adding of that to the original motion. Is that still correct?
I did, yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments to the amendment? All those in favor of amending to add the condition to the original motion? Opposed? Okay, so that would be carried. So that condition is added to the original amendment. Is there any other questions or comments to the original motion that's on the floor with regards to the granting of the application with the three conditions? Eric?
Through you, Mr. Chair, my only concern is in the one condition regarding putting 4 trees on the boulevard. That may be a small section to put all the trees on the in one particular area. I'm definitely more in favor of the trees being either on the property, maybe one on the boulevard or whatnot. And sorry, are you going to?
I was just going to say that the 4 trees would be, if they can replace the one that's on the boulevard, fine, but it sounds like more than likely they can't. And the 4 trees would have to be either, if they can't, some be on the boulevard, then they'd have to be on the property. It would be and or.
Then that's fine. And then the only other thing I would want to maybe add to that is that if they don't want to put them on the property, or it can't be put on the property for whatever reason because of the measurements of the building, I would also like to put that they can work with the city of Port Colborne to find an alternative location to put trees in the absence of the ones they remove.
I can certainly make a friendly motion to amend that, since you were the seconder, if everyone's good with that, or alternate location agreeable to the city.
Oh, and to provide proof thereof of it being, of the trees being planted.
Okay, with verification. Okay, any other questions or comments? Everyone's clear on what the motion is on the floor? Not seeing any more comments. All in favor? Opposed? To be carried. Thank you. Not sure. I'm hoping that David caught all of that. The nice thing that is this is being recorded, so you can go back and listen to the video over and over and over again to get the right wording. So with that being said, just going back to that concludes the applicants that we have this evening. Just going back to my agenda for the meeting. Is there any other business with any of the members this evening? Not seeing any. Can I look for a mover and a seconder of the minutes from the August 11th Committee of Adjustment meeting? Angie and Gary for a seconder. I do want to add a comment. I know I wasn't at the meeting, and it's not really pertaining to the actual wording of the minutes themselves. I did read the minutes, and there was something that I won't say alarmed me, but it was enough that I asked the question of David in an email afterwards. And I believe one of the applications, keeping in mind that it was, I believe that the wording was deferred in the minutes, and it does sound like there was some discussion. And I don't want to get into. I know it's still an active application, so I don't want to get into the details. But I do want to state that once a meeting has, an application has started to be heard, there's only 3-4 maximum remedies that are an outcome of the committee. One is a denial. One is a granting. The second is an adjournment. And the fourth, you can actually reserve a decision. And I don't think we've ever used a reserve. We have granted an adjournment, and I think that might have been what was being sought after at that point. Like I said, I don't want to get into the details. I wasn't there, and we're not discussing the application this evening. But just for future reference, just to be clear, I believe an adjournment would be as if you ran into something and you needed clarity and you didn't want to make a decision because you didn't have all the information. You go away, you usually come back, you set a date, and then you can decide after you get that clarity. I don't know why there would be a use of a kind of a reserve judgment. That is a remedy to us that we can use. I would assume everything's concluded and for some reason you want to deliberate for some reason. I guess from my perspective, I wouldn't ever try to recommend a reserve judgment because then one might be considered being biased or manipulated while off camera or out of camera or whatever. But an adjournment certainly I think would be something that we've done in the past. I do see a couple of hands up, so I'll go to, I think I seen Gary first and then to Eric. So Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad you brought that up. It would be helpful, maybe perhaps as members, if we could get a definition of that reserve either from the association or from planning.
Oh, I see Eric's waving his hand feverishly. Maybe he has an answer for you.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, reserve essentially just means that as a adjudicator, you are taking time to then formulate your decision and provide a written response usually. So what happens usually at tribunals, or particularly LPAD, or let's say the landlord tenant board, a member would then reserve the time after hearing the application to then provide a written response, and they may provide an oral response of what the outcome is, and then reserve time, however long it may take. Some, depending on the legislation, have timeframes when a decision must be made, and then they usually write it out for people.
Yeah, like I said, the only concern I have is because it's a group. I would see if it was one person. Obviously, they can go off and they can write, and if they want to put something in writing afterwards, fine, to think about it. The only concern I have is that we have a group of people. I know with some of the applications, even this go around, any outside influences, I know it's a challenge. Even when you visit a property, you see the property owner comes running over, the neighbor comes running over and wants to start talking to you and know what you're doing and everything else. And to me, just reserving a decision from a committee would just, I don't know, give a potential sense of bias or influence that was outside the meeting. And personally, I don't think that would be an adjournment. Obviously, gives the opportunity to come back. You can finish any discussions. You can bring forward any other reports or comments, or public wants to speak again. You can certainly do all of that. It's a little bit more open and straightforward. Anyway, like I said, I don't want to belabor it. Those were the things I seen that in the minutes, and I quickly looked it up. Those were the 4 things that I could see. But anyway, I just, for clarity purposes, yeah, that's all I had. As far as what was discussed and what's in the minutes is fine. I did read through them, and David gave me some context as to what the situation was, so I'll just leave it at that. Whenever that application does come back, all I will say is two warnings. 1, don't discuss the application between now and whenever. And 2, when it comes back, it'll be just you 4 that have to discuss it. Obviously, I won't be able to interject. I think I can maybe still chair the meeting. I just can't comment on the application. I can just point to people, they can talk, but I can't add any further comments or discussion since I wasn't part of the original. And if we lose any members for whatever reason, the next meeting someone drops off because they're sick, vacation, whatever you, then you're left with whoever's remaining. And I don't believe you can lose quorum because of that. So theoretically, if it went down, as long as there's one of you left, you can do that. The only, I guess, other concern that I have, I think we're still okay, but if it drags on too long, because there is no time frame on that adjournment, and the committee gets dissolved and replaced, then that causes an issue, because now you can't go and hear that. You got to start all over again, and it's not supposed to be stretched out. The committee, when it comes to a committee, there's supposed to be a decision made, and for either the property owner and or adjacent property owners and people of interest. So they really do a decision one way or the other. Anyway, Eric, I seen you had your hand up.
It may not be in the minutes, but I thought there was discussion as to a time frame for that deferral, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, like I say, it wasn't noted in the minutes, but I'll like I said, I'll leave it at that. I don't want to get into the details, but anyway, just for future reference is why I bring it up. So with that, if there are any other questions or comments on the minutes, all in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. So with that, motion to adjourn. Gary, seconded by Eric, all in favor. That'll be carried. This committee will stand adjourned. Thank you.